So I was always a great student. Top of my class, honors kid, skimmed off the top and labeled as honored in 4th grade. I often reflect back on that and wonder if that was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Was it because that someone said I was gifted and then I was set through a separate track starting at age 10? Through college, through the honors program in college, through my MBA at the top of my class, if that really drove me excelling, or if it was because I was given better opportunities, because kids put in that bucket are given better opportunities and different learning environments.
I was under toxic stress growing up. You know, I tried to, I never felt like I was really worthy.
It was my first day of school ever. I was in kindergarten. I was just kind of like isolated, just watching the kids play. And a first grade boy approached me. And I was like, oh my God, someone's gonna talk to me. I'm gonna have a friend finally. And he's like, what are you looking at, blackface? I was like, oh, I was not expecting that at all. I knew it was real, but just hearing that really crystallized that reality for me personally.
I walk up the steps to my school, I walk in the classroom, and I don't hear the same things. I don't see, you know, I walk in and I'm like, this sounds different.
I was in a classroom today for one of the Green Fellows that I brought to the city from Chicago. This guy had a rough upbringing. He's sitting in the chair, and he's like, all right, y'all have the instructions, they're on the board, you got it. Be autonomous of your own learning. Learn from each other. If you really need me, I am here. But I want there to be negotiated meaning, I want there to be conversation, and I want you to struggle and find a way out of it on your own.
You know, if you could go back and if you could change one thing, or if there's one more thing that would have happened during your educational experience that would have empowered you more, what would that have looked like for you?
For me, that would have been the ability to take classes that better suited my interests later after high school.
So in that classroom, I had agency, which when you come from trauma, you don't have, like you're not in control. That was the year I felt just the happiest and the best because I had control.
And I think about students when they feel like they've reached an understanding, like with support, they know they got that net to catch them if they need it, but when they really went through that struggle, that crucible, and achieved that goal despite circumstances against them on their own, that is the ultimate agency for me.
So I already knew my freshman year what I wanted to do after I graduated high school, or what I wanted to do after I graduated college.
Your freshman year of high school, you knew what you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you grew up?
Yeah, when I grew up, yeah.
Okay.
See, but part of me is like, I wanted to get classes towards that, but there wasn't really any classes at my high school that got me ready for that.
When you're a learner, you need to be in charge of your learning, otherwise it's being done to you and you're not really learning. Curiosity and imagination are like the key. Imagination allows us to kind of go outside the status quo and kind of dream that maybe things could be different. We have to have that agency and that time and the choice and the freedom. Freedom is another key word.
If we don't, as a community, start helping all kids get to a point where their most basic needs are met, then they don't have agency of choice. I really wanted to achieve to the point that I think a lot of kids do, especially in suburban education environments that can get kind of toxic. This really competitive environment where there's limited amount of slots for the kids who are at the top to achieve, and you look right and you look left and you want the highest score on the test. So it became more about getting A's than really learning. It became more about gaming the system and achieving on the test than what was I getting out of the educational experience.
But for me, when I moved over in the business sector, there was only 2 classes I could take my entire high school career. And you could take that in 2 semesters and be done with it. And so while I enjoyed those 2 classes I took, if I could have had more that really were beneficial towards me and that helped me further along my career, that power of choice could have been critical for me.
Would have pushed you so far.
And realize that you're not stuck in this little box that school tends to put us into.
We need to find a way in schools to bring wraparound support systems to get kids to a place where they're comfortable being innovative and having agency and choice, and where they're not worried about the most basic things that they should just have.
What were the influences for you that allowed you to identify early on what you wanted to know and what your passions were?
Access to information in twofolds, my parents and then my teachers.
You know, whenever I have to get up in front of teachers and talk to teachers about the relationships that we're building with our students and the importance of those relationships to make sure that we're able to give our students everything that they need. It all starts with the relationship.
I was lucky that 7th, 8th, 9th grade years, I had tremendous teachers that gave me the information I needed and the support I needed to be able to determine what I wanted to do. And part of that is early on taking classes in all these different subjects and finding out what I was interested in and finding out what I really wasn't interested in and kind of using that as a measure of what I wanted to do later on.
One of my best friends, she was this blonde girl, and we were in an English class together, and at the end of the class, you got to confer with your teacher to determine what your next class would be for sophomore year. And so she went up to the teacher and she had her conference and she came back like, I was recommended for pre-IB English. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have the same grade. I'm gonna be recommended for pre-IB English.
I was blessed to have my algebra teacher in high school, Paul Donovan. That was my guy. During my junior year, I had a son. I told him about it, and I would go to his class and I would skip in his pre-calc class. Like, who does that? But because of the relationship that we had with each other, I felt comfortable going in there. He would pull me to the side and he'd say, hey, man, what are you doing?
And my teacher's like, okay, you're gonna be in 10th grade, regular 10th grade English. I'm like, but Kelsey had the same grade, I don't understand. And so I had to speak up and be like, can I actually be in the IB class? Because I can handle it. And she's like, oh, you want to be in it? Okay, I'll put you in it. It's like, had I not advocated and voiced that? Yeah. And the only difference between me and Kelsey, because we were had the same friend group, we were both cheerleaders, we were both honor roll, all these things, was the fact that I was a black young woman and she was white.
The interesting thing about it is, he was a gay, atheist, white guy. And here I am, I'm an African-American, straight, Christian. And despite our differences, he still found something in me, and he still poured everything that he had into me.
One thing we could do is help facilitate a conversation with students around what they think success is. Help them define it. Help meet them where they are as opposed to the box we put them in based on their birth date and their age and their neighborhood and their zip code. And then design a scaffolded intervention solution to help get them to where they want to be.
When I was in the 7th grade, I went to a school where I was the only black student. And so I remember in the entire school.
How big was the school?
It was quite small. It was another private school.
There's all types of things that are going on that are the root. So we probably shouldn't really think about what's happening, what we're seeing, but really dig deeper. And I always like to go back on a poem that was written by Tupac. It's called I Cry. And in the poem, he says, who do you know that stops that long to make sure that another can carry on? And I try to always live by that and stop long enough to be able to identify what's going on with my students. And I think if we take that approach more often, that we'll be able to really make true change.
I could not eat lunch in the cafeteria because the kids were so horrendous in their treatment of me. I would have to eat in the bathroom stall. It was almost like a scene from Mean Girls where I'm trying by myself. And so I remember one day my dad's like, okay, we're gonna practice this, we're gonna role play, this is how you're gonna stand up to them. And so I had this huge speech ready, we role played it, I was ready to go. Oh, wow. And I confronted these mean girls at the cafeteria and I was like, it's unacceptable for you to treat me like this, I refuse, and had this whole thing, and they just looked at me and laughed. I'm like, oh, that did not go very well at all. I was so ready, and it fell so flat. I was like, and I'm not gonna listen to my dad anymore.
There's this balance between a highly centralized structure and a highly decentralized structure, and neither is perfect, and it's somewhere in between. You need to give autonomy and agency to the people closest to the problem to recommend the appropriate solutions. I don't think the agency is on the students. I think we need to change the system so that's not the environment that we're creating for them. We are creating this system and setting kids up to fail when they graduate because the skills we're teaching them aren't teaching them to have agency.
I always was in trouble for talking. And it's funny, when you think about professionally as you continue to grow and mature, sure, you need those hard skills. of how to do certain things, how to make 2 + 2 4, et cetera, et cetera. But the soft skills tend to be more important as you continue to progress in your career. How do you converse with people from different backgrounds? How do you find that common ground and a common denominator with people that aren't from the same walk of life as you? I found that my ability to capture language and culture and make that educational and ingrain that and entrench that into who I am has probably been the most versatile skill set I've ever owned.
As adults, we have to open up the way that we view things. We have to open up, it's 2018, the way that we do things now is completely different from a traditional way, so we can't have a traditional mindset.
If we start designing our schools with our students and our parents and our community, we can get the school that we need.
We need to be facilitators, connecting them to resources and helping them drive their own path.
We started this new thing called the Crossroads Community Collaborative. And in that, we're being really intentional with how we connect with the community for the betterment of our students. There's so many amazing nonprofits and civic agencies and businesses right downtown where our school is located. And we tap them to come alongside us to provide these authentic project-based experiences for our students.
We need to give them opportunities to see what potential careers are out there in the world, identify those, and see what sparks joy and sparks interest in their lives, and then help cultivate them until they change their mind and want to pivot on their path.
So you're saying it was the persistence of him staying on you
Oh,
that made you
absolutely.
really value the relationship?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a hard-headed guy, so I'm always gonna believe that my way is the right way until I learn otherwise. And he broke all the barriers, and it helped me socially as well. It showed me that, hey, whatever people may have said about homosexuals, way 10 years ago.
Just whatever labels we
any
give
label,
people in
yeah.
general.
He defied all that.
Teachers are doing the best they can, administrators, but we're doing it in isolation. You can't make what kids need without asking them, and we don't ask them. So it's going to take the community, and then it's a straight up commitment to let's design this around the kids.
We need to teach kids that it's okay to fail and set up environments that are conducive of them failing. Because I was terrified of failure. I'm still terrified of failure. To this day, I'm terrified of failure, and I think that's a product of the way that we're delivering education to kids in this country today.
I've been reading a book called The Originals. I've told you about this a million times. It's my favorite book. This guy's like a multi-billionaire. He's like a dynamo when it comes to investments. Nowhere in his mission statement for the company is there any mention of money, generating revenue, ROI, investment. It's all about culture. That's the best part. That's the best part about any kid is the culture they bring to any space.
I think one issue that's often faced is that we tell students you can be whatever you want to be, dream big, the sky's the limit. But so often they don't know what's out there for them to pursue. So exposure is so critical, and I think opportunities such as the Crossroads Community Collective allow for students to see what they could pursue and what they could be.
I think with entrepreneurship, there's this idea that if you're going down that route, you're doing something against the norm, which is partially true and partially okay with that too. But to me, that whole mindset of being able to do things that are different kind of goes back to the exact conversation we're just having. Giving teachers more autonomy, that's an entrepreneurial idea. Doing things, giving students more autonomy, that's an entrepreneurial idea. Just because you're not starting a business or doing something like that doesn't mean you're not doing something entrepreneurial. It's the mindset behind it about why you're making decisions to solve those problems in the first place.
It took a really traumatic life event for me to feel like I had agency over my own life, and I came from fine, better than fine. The summer before my senior year of high school, I was sitting at home and I got a phone call from my grandparents, and they let me know that my father had just died in a plane crash. He wasn't a supremely happy person. He was a very high achiever, Yale undergrad, magna cum laude, top of his class, president of his fraternity. It changed my definition of success. I said, it put my life in this really harsh perspective. Like, what am I living for? Am I living for everybody else, or am I living for me?
Like to accomplish all of that, but not
be
live an ecstatic life.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Why do all that? Is that what I want for myself?
I view the work that all of us do around this table as being purveyors of belief. I think we've gotten away from, somewhere along the way, really championing our students to just believe in themselves. To not focus on so much hitting a metric, hitting the NWEA, hitting the MAP test, but really just focusing on like, what is your potential?
Find what you love and just make time for it.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Follow that passion, and really, it's hard when you have a best friend or a group of friends that are your happy place. Be your own person and try to really authentically understand what gets you excited and what makes you happy, and follow it.
I'm part of the Centurions Leadership Program, and at the end of every event that we do, there's a social aspect. And for me, that's the best part.
I wanted to combat that reality in education because I had this like really keen awareness that education was the great equalizer, had the potential to be when done right.
That's where I learned the most about people and how I can uniquely position people within my network to push an agenda and push an initiative that is going to uplift the community around me.
I think feeling it allows you to speak firsthand to the impact of those injustices so that you can have allies come alongside you to do the work to progress things, to making things more equitable.
Be true to who you are. You know, no matter what differences you may think that you have compared to someone else, you know, just know at the end of the day, you're human. You have something that the world needs.